Welcome to suburban Delaware. Today we will be riding the longest SEPTA regional rail route, the Newark to Wilmington route, and we're going to start here in Newark, Delaware. But first, let's talk about some history and where this route goes. SEPTA's Wilmington-Newark line is the longest SEPTA line, running over 40 miles from Center City, Philadelphia, all the way to Newark, Delaware, 3 miles away from the Maryland border. This route runs along the infamous Northeast Corridor. This means that Amtrak trains speed by you as you make local stops in every little town. Or I should say borough, because they're not technically towns, they're boroughs. This right-of-way has been used for rail travel since before the U.S. Civil War even happened. This right-of-way alignment was originally constructed by the Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad in the late 1830s. The alignment was obtained by the Pennsylvania Railroad decades later in the 1880s, and it was electrified in the late 1920s. In 1976, Conrail obtained the tracks, and finally in 1983, the tracks were taken over by SEPTA. This is a bit confusing, as when I look at the track ownership information, it says that Amtrak owns the tracks, so I'm not sure exactly what happened or how or when Amtrak got them from SEPTA, or if SEPTA even had them in the first place. I'm just going by some online sources, but if you know more about this, let me know in the comments down below. The line's original terminus was Marcus Hook, but in 1989 that terminus was expanded to Wilmington, Delaware. In 1991, an infill station opened in Claymont. In 1997, Newark Station started receiving SEPTA service, and in 2000, Churchman's Crossing Station opened, and that was the final change on this line. The line was not always known as the Wilmington-Newark line. Before 2010, it was actually known as the R2 line, because SEPTA's regional rail services had an R and then a number to denote which destination you were going to, rather than just calling it by the terminus stations, which is what they do now. Alright, our first station going from the suburbs to Philly is Newark. Newark is the southern terminus of SEPTA's regional rail network. It's a 20-minute walk from the University of Delaware, and I visited this station in 2010 when I lived near here for summer. I also visited a few months ago. Here you can check out my full video on Newark Station. The next station is Churchman's Crossing. This is probably Delaware's least known station. It's just a park and ride, located between Newark and Wilmington. It does get a tiny bit more ridership than Newark, at least in 2018, when the most recent data is from. Wilmington is the busiest train station in the state of Delaware, with over 2,000 boardings per weekday between SEPTA and Amtrak. When my family lived in Delaware for a summer, my dad took Amtrak to DC to take care of some work stuff. I think that's the only time he's used Amtrak, but he used this station when he took that trip. Claymont has the nicest station on this list. The original SEPTA station opened in 1991, but was pretty basic with a platform and bus shelters, and that's about it. The new station has a whole building, proper roofs above the platform, and plenty of that sweet suburban parking. This is the final SEPTA station in Delaware heading towards Philadelphia. Marcus Hook Station is the second closest station to one set of my grandparents. Wawa Station is technically closer. But because the roads look like this, the only safe way to get there is by car, from my grandparents' house. Before 1989, this station was the terminus station of this line. At the time, it was known as the R2 line rather than the Wilmington-Newark line. My great-grandfather on my dad's side worked for Sun Oil, which was one of the main oil producers that refined oil here. You can see all of the old industry around here, which has been slowly declining. Highland Avenue is the first of two stations in the city of Chester, Pennsylvania. Highland Avenue is what I'd call a neighborhood station. It's just a small platform surrounded by a neighborhood and maybe some small businesses as well. Chester Transportation Center is the main SEPTA station for the city of Chester. It provides connections to the train. It provides connections from the train to 7 bus routes, and it's in the center of the city. The city has really good bones, but has seen a lot of hardship over the years. The city saw a race riot in 1917, and it lost much of its industry in the 1960s, prompting white flight. This led to the city seeing an increase in its black population, which led to the city to be a battleground of the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement. There was proposed legislation to desegregate the city's predominantly black public schools, but this led to protests, violence, and it got so bad that the city received the nickname Birmingham of the North. Schools were officially desegregated in late 1967, a decision prompted by order of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Reading this was surprising, because I mistakenly thought that desegregation of schools was much more chill in the North. compared to the south part of the United States, but that clearly isn't completely true. More reading on this topic can be found in the description. Another family fun fact, my grandmother lived in Chester until the late 40s when her family moved to Ridley Park. Eddystone is the least used station on the Wilmington Newark Line at 43 boardings per weekday in 2018. Adjusting for the ridership patterns of 2024, the station probably gets around 23 per day in October of 2024. Eddystone is another neighborhood stop surrounded by housing to the north and industry to the south. It's got a tiny parking lot too. 75 years ago, Eddystone was the home to Baldwin Locomotive Works, a company that built rail locomotives for 125 years until they merged with another company. Baldwin Tower now sits less than a mile from the station, named in honor of the company. Crumlin, another neighborhood station, we're just going to see a lot of those now going forward, is located in Ridley Park. The station is not located in Crumlin, the community that it's named after. Crumlin was named after Crumlin, Wales, where a Pennsylvania Railroad vice president's mother was from. Ridley Park is the next station, less than a mile away. It has a special place in my family because it's where two of my grandparents met when they went to Ridley Park High School together. South of the station is the Old Town part of Ridley Park, and north of the station are pretty nice mid-century single-family homes. In 1880, the station burned down and another was promptly constructed in the same location. On to Prospect Park. This station was originally known as Moore, named after the man who originally owned the property. He donated the property with the condition that the station would carry his family's name. But in 1932, the station's name was switched to Prospect Park. I assume to better accurately portray the area around the station. The station is located right near the main street of the borough, with the Prospect Park War Memorial Library being right next to the station. Norwood is the next station down the line. This one is surrounded by neighborhoods as well. It's also less than half a mile from Prospect Park Station. Fun fact, my dad taught at Norwood Private School in Potomac, Maryland in the early 2000s. Glenolden is the next station. What an interesting name. When measured from Prospect Park Station, it's only a little more than a mile away. The stop spacing here is just so short. At least they use electric trains, which have better acceleration. Fulcroft, which is only 3,000 feet away from Glenolden, has a nice station building on the south side, which was rehabilitated in the early 2010s. The station is, not surprisingly, surrounded by housing and neighborhoods. Sharon Hill Station is a 13-minute walk from the Sharon Hill Trolley Station, where Suburban Trolley Route 102 terminates. The original station building is still standing, and there are talks about restoring it. I actually rode the 102 trolley last year, and I have a whole video on the least used station on the 102 route, so I will hopefully put that in the top right card. Alright, Curtis Park is the penultimate station on its way to Philly. Walkable destinations from the station include Academy Park High School and this industrial warehouse area, which surprisingly gets bus service on Route 115 on SEPTA's suburban bus network. The station was known as Academy before 1948 when the Curtis Publishing Company came to town. Darby is the last station solely on the Wilmington Newark Line before the line joins with the Airport Line and the Media Wawa Line. Darby Station is right at the southernmost point of the borough of Darby. The borough of Darby is also served by trolleys that go directly into Center City. Alright, we started this video in a parking lot, let's end it in a parking lot. So after Darby Station, the train goes to Penn Medicine, which is in Philadelphia, then 30th Street, where you can transfer to Amtrak, and then Suburban Station, which is kind of the main station for all of the suburban trains that go into Philly. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.